Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Dr. Anita Borja Enriquez.
Half a day. Good morning, Manana Sejus. Thank you so much for taking the time to come here and basically have a conversation with me. It's been quite a journey, and I'm just honored and blessed to be here. So I'm going to take this mic off and make it a freewheeling kind of experience. So, Norm, I don't know what the format is, but we'll go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask their question? Dr. Liudin, please proceed to the mic in front of the stage.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question that I'd like to ask Dr. Enriquez. You were quick to lead us through the pandemic front, and you were quick to lead us through the pandemic front and center, pivoting to online and remote teaching, learning, and the work environment. Can you please give us an example of your leadership at the sunset of the pandemic? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Udine. If I understand the question correctly, it wasn't at the sunrise of the pandemic, but rather at the closeout of the pandemic. Okay, all of you experience the importance of the continuity of operations of the institution because we're still in the middle of the academic semester. Students were just about or experiencing their spring break, and so were the faculty. And so there was a need to take that into consideration, what to do about ensuring that the academic courses continued, that the work continued, that the faculty, the students, the staff, all our university internal stakeholders were taken care of. We received the blessing of the American Rescue Plan funding called the Higher Ed Emergency Relief Fund, and millions of dollars poured in. Half of what the University of Guam received was earmarked towards direct student relief, where money went straight into the wallets of students, no questions asked, even if they had stopped out or dropped out, during that two to 3 year period, they were still given money. The university's share was called the institutional portion, and so we felt that because there were a lot of services that weren't being used, that it was not fair to continue to charge students fees, so we waived all those fees that were relevant, and we even gave a tuition discount on top of that. We used part of our institutional portion because, again, this is an example of what was important for us, sustaining the academic enterprise, giving them more money, waiving more fees, allowing part of our institutional portion to serve as grants for students. Up to $5,000 are made available through an application process, and many students took advantage. As the closeout or at the sunset of the pandemic, we knew that our environmental condition, and I speak, in terms of business concepts, your current situation is such where where are we in terms of our strengths, where are we in terms of our weaknesses internally. Usually they relate to internal resources, people, processes, systems, and resources, funding. Externally, what are these challenges? And we knew that everything had changed. The economy slumped. There were students who felt negatively impacted with regard to mental health, anxiety, depression, other members of their family, younger siblings who had to learn remote. All of these incredible, unforeseen and unanticipated challenges that these students were faced with, so we saw a drop in enrollment. I knew that it was important from, just from a strategic planning perspective to go back and say, okay, we've got our Para-Hulu strategic plan, but the conditions have changed. And so the opportunity to get our administrators in a room and say, okay, moving forward, we've got Para-Hulu, but UOG forward, what do we do from here? We need to get a more firm understanding of what has changed. Where are we? Enrollment has dropped, as an example. Our local budget appropriations continue to be in the decline, which is another variable added into that current situation. Okay, and all of these other anticipated stressors. So UOG Forward was a strategic retreat that I took our administrators through to think about what has changed and to dust off the academic master plan, priorities and goals, have a conversation with your faculty. What has changed and where do we go from here? And think about the term sustainability and growth. And what can you do as a unit, working with your internal stakeholders and possibly your external stakeholders, such as your alumni, and if you had an advisory council, bringing them into that conversation. And where do we go from here? So it really is being always mindful from a strategic perspective and not waiting for permission, but rather taking the initiative to have those conversations that are very, very important and certainly very timely. So I didn't dictate where the direction of your respective unit. It was something that had to be a shared dialogue, a shared perspective of where you all were going. And I hope that answered your question, Dr. Udine. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. Are there any other questions? Okay, so we had a question from an administrator, and now we'll have a question from faculty.
This is an uncomfortable question for a lot of people, but I was trying to just write it anonymously, but it was a little too long, so I'll just go ahead and say it. It's about administrative support for faculty. In recent years, faculty have been tasked with ever more clerical tasks. Sometimes as part of the evaluation process, but the tasks we have to do are very clerical in nature. At the same time, administrative support for these tasks has either been declining or declining in effectiveness. Two examples of the latter are the chaos surrounding the catalog going online a couple of years ago, when many courses that had been abolished reappeared and faculty had to spend months trying to correct the record. Or the annual program review, the first year of which was delayed for years because of data problems with categories that were supposed to be populated by the administration. What can be done to improve administrative support for faculty?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those examples. There have been obvious gaps in knowledge, understanding what is going on with regard to the challenges or problems faced within each of the different units, being able to turn those identified gaps or, from a training standpoint, training needs, okay, into something that is in an organized professional development or training program, okay? And so it sounds like there are gaps in, we used to have business office clinics that were hosted by the business office, the controller, particularly where there were notable gaps in what the unit's administrative team were supposed to know and supposed to do. And if there were updates in the processes, the clinics were called. These were regular clinics. I think those of you who have been administrative officers or administrative assistants who were privy to participate in those clinics, those were usually held in the Leon Guerrero SBPA building so that you were kept up to speed. There may be multiple gaps in training, so that is why the faculty are feeling the burden of what it appears to be clerical or administrative support layer of work. And so that's an identifiable gap that we need to work on, not just within the academic units, such as the dean's office and the program level, but also with our enrollment management and student success division that really is the keeper of the online posting and so forth with regard to the catalog in concert with my office team. So as a major gap that I'm just, we learn about these gaps later on instead of addressing them immediately so that we can do something to mitigate and to resolve them right away. Dr. Swami, was that where you were going with this particular question? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. No, I've heard, some feedback about it. I didn't understand the context but understanding the context, turning them into training needs assessment, and doing something to close the training needs gap. And as a former training consultant and training manager, I know the importance of making sure that everyone has the right tools and certainly has the peace of mind of their responsibilities and where to go with regard to other support systems that should already be in place. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Dr. Swami. Now we have a question from staff. Nikki?
Hi, Dr. Anita.
Good morning.
Good morning. My question, I'd like to refer to President Enriquez's memo, his April 18th memo, wherein he writes, as this is regarding the 22% of Public Law 37-3. As the legislature and the governor work towards a resolution, the University of Guam is preparing to provide pay adjustments to all eligible employees. So in light of the report that the governor had submitted its plan on May 5th, when now can the staff expect the 22% pay raise?
Right. Thank you for that. There are some missing components in what was approved for the 22% general pay plan adjustment. One of the unique factors that the University of Guam has at play is that we have more than one classification of staff. We have classified staff. We have staff who don't meet the classified staff category. And so where the funding is not available for that classification of staff, the concern is that when we move forward, and there are a couple of caveats that were placed on the university. One was, if the University of Guam received the funds from the Department of Administration, it could not raise tuition until fall of 2025. It then became a concern about potential threat to the university's institutional autonomy. That was a concern for many years ago with our regional WAS accrediting body. So there was that factor. The other factor is, how do we equitably pull the trigger and roll out the 22% adjustment for classified staff, where in the current budget for FY 2023 did not have the full amount. And so the impact, we're looking at either $2 or $3 million. And so even though there have been funds earmarked for the classified staff, it did not include those from the other side of the staff equation. So how do we do this so that we're equitably delivering this at the same time? And where do we find the funds? So there are a number of different variables that I'm privy to, and I understand the concern of our classified staff. And as we saw the news most recently, GDOE has not even, moved forward with that. Okay, there are certain nuances within each of our agencies or organizations that are very unique. And we thank the staff for your patience, because this is yet again another external variable, unanticipated for FY 2023, to which the University of Guam needs to figure out, in addition to some of the other commitments it has already made by virtue of board approval, such as the faculty salary base adjustment, which was already inserted in the FY 2024 budget. Not in our current FY 2023 budget, but the 22% really is impacting, or will impact, our 2023 budget that was not embedded in our original budget, approved budget from the local appropriation. So there are these nuances. Some of us say, well, I don't even care about all those other factors. But as an institution responsible for much broader obligations that have already been earmarked, we want to make this work. We will provide the 22% adjustment. I cannot give you a date. We cannot give you a date because we're still trying to work out all of these other variables. But we thank you. We certainly thank the staff, especially our classified staff, for your patience on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Enriquez. Are there any questions from alumni or students? Okay, if there are no questions from alumni or students. Yes, sir? A student? Okay, please come up and ask your question to the mic. Thank you.
Happy day, Dr. Enriquez.
Happy day.
I wanted to congratulate you on being one of the finalists for the next presidential search. I actually have a few questions.
Just one, please.
Only one.
Yes.
My one question would be, what is one unique project that President Christ currently has that you want to continue? And what is one project that you hope to bring as part of your legacy if you were to be the next president?
Yes, that's a very good question. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Okay, President Christ brought our team through the development of the Power Hulu strategic plan. We saw a lot of amazing efforts unfold, initiatives. You've got the being recognized as a research university centered in island wisdom. A couple of notable items. We are now, because of our amazing, robust, ecosystem of support through the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs, the Research Corporation of the University of Guam, and certainly all of the other academic and research units. We are now at the, we rank 32% within the 32% of U.S. or American universities in research. That's phenomenal. And the fact that we've also transitioned from our peer and aspirant institutions. So our aspirant institutions include some, I don't know them all, that have a much stronger research engine. And so we are playing at that space. We have, as a result of that, an average of over $25 million in our research and grants portfolio. So we don't want to do, leading as a partnership university is that strategic initiative number 2 within the Power Hulu plan. And so we are partnered with just phenomenal federal agencies, universities that rank high in innovation, such as the Arizona State University with the Center for Island Sustainability as an example. UH Manoa has been an ongoing partner, but new partners from Taiwan and other countries throughout Asia, including Australia, New Zealand, in Europe, and certainly in other parts of the United States. What I want to do is elevate the student success agenda, okay? And what does that mean? We know that students are engaged in the research sphere. We know that students are being accepted through amazing fellowships and mentoring pipelines. We know that students are getting accepted into amazing programs at the doctoral level and even at the master's level. But what I want to do is then align those with just about every sector of our island and our region. So the trend has been on, ensuring that we address our fiduciary responsibility to our students with regard to the workforce. And so there is a need to work with the external community to ensure that our students, their programs and their efforts, their portfolios, their professional portfolios are aligned with the opportunities that are out there. And we've been getting requests, not just from on island, but also from outside our island borders. We have an opportunity for a cybersecurity intern at UH in partnership with a federal agency. We have an opportunity to offer the mechanical engineering degree program because there is an employer who is looking for Guam-based graduates in this particular field, but because the University of Guam doesn't offer it, we optimize on partnerships to bring these opportunities, but they all have a workforce, they all have a career alignment component. But what's equally important is to optimize on college affordability, but to also ensure that the university's financial business model is transformed. There's a much better model, and I'm excited about bringing that to the table in order to make all of these other opportunities possible. across those planes that I've just addressed. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for your question. I know you have several questions, but hopefully we can get back to you again when we open it up. Congratulations. Congratulations. Do we have any questions from an alum? Kathleen, well, you can qualify as an alum.
You're an alum.
So you could ask your question. Yes.
My question is about buildings. So we are just about, thankfully, to go to bid for the two EDA-funded projects, which is the new Wary facility and the new nursing annex. And you've been instrumental since the beginning in making sure that those projects are a go, and in fact, getting another $2.5 million from the governor's office through a meeting with the lieutenant governor to bring that to the point where we have enough money to build everything, which is amazing. And even given the price increases. What is next on your agenda for buildings? Clearly, we've got some needs, but there's also a lot of laboratory needs and other things. And I'm just curious as to, what you think is next on the agenda for construction.
Thank you very much. That has to be a shared priority. Okay, I think dusting off the fiscal facilities master plan that was developed or imagined decades ago, and taking our current needs and our current situation and the shared vision into consideration. So what ought to be prioritized? Taking into consideration existing facilities, what can be refreshed, what can be renovated, what can be expanded, but also recognizing that, gosh, our research, the academic enterprise has gone beyond the current antiquated facilities that are in place. We've heard faculty who are engaging in research, and they teach in our old labs. And so the labs are fine for students to engage in their respective instructional research-related activities, but there isn't anything for faculty. So I would love to be able to address, this fine arts auditorium, long overdue for prioritization, obviously, recognizing that the humanities is still a critical part for this to grow or to strengthen the civility of our society, right? And so this is something that we've seen a lot of students being able to reflect their amazing talent through the arts and the fine arts in general. And so that's a priority area, seeing what we can do to leverage funds and partners to get the research, a research facility or some semblance of that built, but also take into consideration the other needs that are based on, conversations of addressing, so what's next? What ought to be our shared vision, shared values, shared goals, shared priorities? And that conversation needs to take place. It's not my vision, but it's our vision that's important. Hope I answered that question.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to the round of questions that were written on cards. After I go through this round, then I will open it up again to the audience to ask their questions in person. And we have a question here from faculty, and that is, the legislature develops policies on a whole host of social and economic issues. UOG has enormous breadth and depth of expertise, yet we are underutilized by our decision makers. Could you consider ways to engage local government in utilizing UOG's expertise?
Absolutely. We need to be at every possible table in our community. We need to know who is involved in what, and where can we as an institution be a partner towards those particular initiatives. For example, if someone if you've got a senator as an oversight chair and other senators or members of the Committee on Economic Development, it behooves us to bring together those individuals, those entities, whether they be extension, research, instruction, whichever, to provide the information. We are here. Here's what we have available. We want to be a partner to this effort. Let us know what we can do, and having those regular engaging conversations. It really has to do with relationship building and relationship maintenance or management. And you can't have those relationships by simply texting to introduce yourself. There has to be that in-person contact and presenting publications, tools, any kind of information that will be helpful to those respective agencies. For example, we saw how a partnership had strengthened through the Water and Environmental Research Institute of the Western Pacific, or WERI, and the Guam Water Works Authority through this One Guam initiative, where GWA has acknowledged WERI at the University of Guam as being the research and development arm for GWA. And to hear the head of that agency say that was like music to my ears. I would love to hear that particular type of partnership, recognition about the University of Guam's value. I know for the longest time, and I've known Dr. Barber for a long time, since the 1994, we collaborated on a research project for roadside stands. And so Dr. Barber is a household name with the Guam, Farmers Cooperative, with farmers. If you are Dr. Jones is a household name with a lot of organizations, private government, with regard to economics, state of the economy. She's often called to as an expert. There are multiple entities that are prospective think tanks, right, for agencies. I was really thrilled when I was a part of a U.S. scholar delegation in Taiwan in 2013, sitting through these meetings at these respective ministries, whether it be Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so forth, and to see professors from their top universities part of that conversation and being referred to as members of the think tank for that respective ministry. I said, wow, that's the goal, to be able to have something. I remember former President Dr. Underwood mentioning when the Center for Island Sustainability was first established, and he says, we consider ourselves a potential think tank for addressing island sustainability issues and so forth. And so all of these different centers that have been established at the University of Guam, where faculty bring on board students to be part of the solution, to be part of that ecosystem of engaging in research, to feed into policies, to feed into potential needs for planning purposes. So we already have, thank you for that question. We already have the infrastructure. We just need to connect the dots, right, and be more engaged. So I'm very excited to see that, to see that expand, especially as we think about our policymakers. And basically, don't wait to be asked. Just go ahead and show up and say, here's what we have to offer, and just keep them engaged. When you have activities, make sure they're invited. When you have opportunities for their input, make sure they're at the table as well. So building that relationship of trust and really strengthening the relationships are critical for us to get more, just for us to make more positive traction with regard to where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. The next question comes from staff. When can the staff expect to receive their overdue merit bonuses?
Okay. Yes, a day. That's very important. It should have been done a long time ago. And I know that the value of that is close to $300,000. So we have a plan. We just need to make sure that the money is available and ready to roll out to get those merit bonuses paid. Okay. So that's very important. That's the top of the priority as far as including the 22% pay adjustment, including the faculty face pay adjustment. So the administration is committed to those. The board is committed to those, and certainly it's something that we need to make sure gets carried out. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is from an administrator. What is the biggest management problem you have ever solved, and how did you solve it?
Wow. Okay. There's a lot. Well, I'll try to touch on at least a couple. We had holes in our sexual misconduct policy and processes. I had to be the face of the university in court, but there was an amazing team, you know, of a cross-section representation of members at our university who were tasked to go through and close all the gaps. And so that was important because what we used to hear is if the concern, the complaint was not put in writing and it wasn't signed by the person who made the allegation, then it never happened. Okay, so there was a hole in the policy and the processes. So what we did was we closed that. We made sure that everybody knew what are the different examples of sexual misconduct or stalking and so forth. And so that had to be embedded, including the training, including making it mandatory for every single employee of the University of Guam and every single student to be aware of what are these different examples, because we wanted to mitigate those. And that was an amazing accomplishment. I call myself the UOG 411 and the UOG 911 and the chief fire extinguisher. And I say that because I'm usually a person that receives grievances. And I usually have the president of the faculty union sitting in my office with the person filing the grievance because it did not get resolved at the direct supervisor level. And so from my goal always is to make sure that there's resolution, that the faculty or the employee is made whole, especially if I'm part of the process. And it should never reach the president's level ever. Okay, it should never. And so for me, it's like the buck stops here. Let's resolve this. So you have those who chronically were grieving their respective supervisor, and so I finally was, I was able to get that resolved by saying, okay, we're going to make this work. Okay, Dean, we're going to make this work. Faculty member, we're going to make this work. President of the union, we're going to make this work. Okay, what do you want? How shall we make it work? And so having that style, that style of being sincere, sincere about wanting to make things work has helped to mitigate a lot of grievances. So to me, that was a big win. And the other part was our graduation rates, our completion rates were very low, very dismal. And I wondered, I said, okay, so what's the target? Oh, it's 30%. I'm like, out of 100%? I said, 30% out of 100%. That was a goal. That was a target. And I knew that we had to do something about that. But we need everyone on board. And I have been so thrilled to see how not just the administrators, but also the faculty and the staff were on board about, hey, let's do more research about how to do this right. So we, I always say we. I don't like to take credit, but I always say we. But I launched the Student Success Innovation Team right before our 2016 WASC review. And I said, okay, there's a lot of catching up to do because 26% graduation rate ain't gonna cut it. And so we had a number of faculty, a number of staff, a number of others who said, I wanna be part of this space. I said, okay. So we learned about high impact practices. We learned about a first year seminar. We learned about the new student convocation. We learned about all of these other initiatives that really fell under the student success agenda. And so I gave each dean up to $10,000 based on a proposal, a budget that said, okay, how are you going to improve retention and completion rates for your respective school or college? Give me a budget, a proposal. Tell me what the deliverables are. Tell me what impact you expect to achieve, how much, okay, and so forth. So if Dr. Margaret Totori Uchima were still alive, and she gave this to me off her neck, but she would say, if it weren't for that $10,000, we wouldn't have been able to do this. If we weren't for the $10,000, we wouldn't have had 100% pass rate in the NCLEX exam for our students. If it weren't for that $10,000. But you know, if you knew Dr. Margaret, she was always praising everybody anyway. Okay, she was, because she was that type of personality. But she really took it to heart, and others did too. You know, we rolled out advisement specialists in the colleges and schools, but all of that became a transformative process, because we knew that at one of the important levers of revenue at the University of Guam were tuition. But if students were not persisting towards their degree, then they were basically stopping out or dropping out. And we knew we had to close that gap. By virtue of our 26% graduation rate, we knew there was a problem. So I can't point to exactly, but I have to believe it's all those different innovative efforts that we employed, to which faculty were a major player, as well as staff and our administrators, that we moved the needle in a 5-year period from 26% graduation rate to 41.2% in 5 years' time. Okay. That's phenomenal. It's never been that high. Then COVID hit, the pandemic hit. And of course, we're having to engage in this INADAHI wraparound support for this. So I point to students as an important part of that equation, as well as our faculty and staff as an important part of that equation. But with regard to just examples, and there are many other examples, but it really is to the benefit of a lot of our very passionate university community members across all areas, to really allow us to move that needle in many different areas. So for the University of Guam to achieve what it has for its recognition as, in terms of being recognized as a university that has ranked high in social mobility, enabling first-generation students, those in lower socioeconomic status, to be able to persist and complete their degrees on time. See our public school graduates get accepted to Ivy League schools. You know, that's attributed to the amazing faculty and their culture of care in mentoring and working with our students to help make that happen. So University of Guam used to be the university of last resort. Through all of our efforts, to become a university of choice. And so we're just very proud of that, and to the credit of members of our university team. Sorry, I went off track.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Enriquez. The next question comes from an alum. How do you form connections or relationships with students at the university? Do you continue to nurture these relationships post-graduation?
Thank you. The most fun I had was when I was a faculty member at the College of Business and Public Administration, and then I became dean. And being dean, I always say being dean is like the best job on this campus, only because you have an opportunity to work with students, work with faculty, and be really innovative with with resources and getting resources back in. When I was dean, I had an advisory council that was comprised of industry leaders. It was important to have that in place, because then they served as prospective internship sponsors, prospective employers, prospective scholars, ambassadors for our programs, ambassadors for our students, but also the pulse of the community to make sure we remain relevant. Some of those members of my advisory council were also alumni. And it was important to have alumni perspective in helping with the overall pulse of our current condition as a school, and also to help ensure that we were being relevant. I keep track with my graduates, those whom I've had as students, who were student leaders in student organizations, whom I also engage with very closely through social media. Find out when are their birthdays, what's going on, LinkedIn, oh, they've got a promotion, oh, they're employed here. And just sending them a note says, we're so proud of you, congratulations on being engaged. And when, asking when are you coming out, or I'm going to be out here, let's get together and let's have coffee. Oh, by the way, we have this amazing scholarship back home. Would you be willing to support this, right? And so just keep that culture of connecting, which is really embedded in how we are as a small island. It's important maintaining those relationships, seeing where we could provide further value to our alumni, bring them back in as prospective instructors, prospective faculty, prospective engagers and grant projects, especially we know their capabilities and their strengths, inviting them to be guest speakers, inviting them as well to participate in other kinds of activities, also them serving as mentors for our current students, as coaches for our current students, and also for those to also participate in our job fairs and so forth. So the relationship doesn't end after they graduate. Okay, we recognize that having over 19,000 alumni out there, how they play a critical role in the University of Guam's success by virtue of their continued engagement. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. We will now open the floor for questions from the audience. Sir, come on up, please. So this would question from faculty.
Good morning, Dr. Enriquez. One of the challenges that we're facing, for example, for offering a new program is retention of faculty, especially working at UOG. To be particular for the School of Engineering. And in the past 4 years, 2 faculty left and 1 will be leaving. That means there's instability for a new program, and this is also applicable for other programs that we're going to offer in the future. So what, if you lead the university, what particular initiatives or interventions or programs are going to do so that we can retain faculty members?
Good question. It is a very disruptive period in the, when we think about the history of the institution. I say it's most disruptive because of the decline in local appropriations and also the fact that faculty salaries have gotten so far behind that has to change. We can never be competitive with regard to salaries, especially for our hard-to-hire faculty positions such as engineering. You can easily be offered twice the amount or 3 times the amount that we currently offer. What's important is to make sure that you have the tools, the support. And I understand the current context at the School of Engineering. You have been without a dean. We're grateful for Dr. Udine helping to fill in, but it's not acceptable. The staff support, there's also a void that's not acceptable. So we have to fast track in getting those gaps closed. There are active searches that are underway, and it's just a matter of being mindful of how do we ensure the continuity of the program to support the students, what can we do as a bridge, leveraging your advisory council and making sure that we find another way to onboard faculty as soon as we can. As far as the retention, I mean, the retention issue applies across the board for all faculty, obviously. Those who are vested, who are close to retirement, they're going to be there till retirement, I'm sure. And those who are also called Guam their permanent home, they're here, but it doesn't mean that there's still the frustration. And so that's something that we're going to have to work on. Your area is most unique, and we're going to make sure that we address those. I know it's been frustrating. Some hard decisions are going to have to be made with regard to your support system, and that's something that we're going to try to address within the next couple of weeks. I hope that answers your question. I thank you for all the hard work in getting our ABET accreditation report with your colleagues. I know that you've hung on as long as you could trying to do this through a pandemic period. It hasn't been easy, and we certainly appreciate your value. I mean, you're a rock star, Dr. Guades, with in terms of everything you do, and I know we will be losing another rock star at that, and so we're sad to see that person leave. But we will consolidate our efforts and work together to make sure that we get through this as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have a question from an administrator, Dr. Jones.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is, we're getting quite a bit of recognition in the region. And it appears that the University of Guam is growing from that recognition to become kind of a regional university. Demand for our programs, demand for our expertise in consulting and research. And I'd like your outlook as to how we grow the university in that regional capacity and at the same time meet the challenges of capacity here.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that question. As we think about expansion in the region, and we've recognized that there are talent, prospective members of the current smaller pool of faculty to serve as approved associate faculty or approved adjunct faculty by faculty within the respective program here. And to also recognize that the existing partners are willing to work closely with the University of Guam in terms of the part-time staff support for programs that supplement and complement their existing offerings at the two-year college. For example, we'll be graduating 7 or 8 students soon within the MPA program, and that came as a result of a request from the Northern Mariners College. We want to build a cadre of people with master's degrees in this respective areas. We responded to the need. There are a lot of needs out there, and it means aligning what we have with regard to offerings, ensuring that there is capacity within those respective areas, such as in the CNMI, or in Palau, or perhaps in Pohnpei, or in the module for the RMI, and seeing based on their needs, because we have to make that assessment and make sure that we're not delivering something just because we think it's a great idea, but it really is based on what they need. And finding a way to offer these that's sustainable, right? But it's also not going to create a burden to the already existing fragile composition, just the composition of faculty. For example, we could never expand in civil engineering because we need to strengthen the core of our current program and our current faculty, where you've got the opportunity where we already have alumni, we already have holders of terminal degrees who could be a supplement to existing faculty portfolio, whether it be in the PMBA program, the accounting program, and so forth. That's possible. And so we know that our faculty are also engaged in the research and extension. So it's not just teaching programs, it's not just courses, it's not just degree programs, but also the need for knowledge. So we develop not just the intellectual infrastructure, but also professional infrastructure. And so we have that differential advantage as a university. We're not just a 4-year degree granting institution. We're a comprehensive, diversified institution that offers master's programs and it has a robust research and extension engine. We have to remember that. And so we know that there are willing partners in the region across all of Micronesia, across all of Oceania, and we see that happening even in Hawaii with UH Manoa. And so considering them as a partner, as a supplement to what we have to offer, and truly being that regional university where you have those in political science, as an example, who are serving as members of a think tank for regional issues. Okay, so we don't just limit ourselves to this campus. Our campus is much broader than that. And so thank you, Dr. Jones, for asking that question. I know that SBPA, through your leadership, is already exploring through those conversations, and it's certainly something that we hope to replicate across the board with other colleagues across the university. I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Are there any questions from students, staff, or alumni? Staff?
That's okay. It's a good question.
So years ago, I was under a program that took care of tuition, right? It was the staff tuition program. And then it got taken from us. So I wonder what you will do, hopefully, to give us that staff tuition.
Thank you, Nikki. I say that staff council's voice has been missing, right, in this conversation about shared governance. And I heard about that program. I'm not as privy to what happened, why it stopped. All I know is that where there are opportunities to provide our staff with professional development, whether it be tuition assistance or if we provided it before, why did it stop? So I need to investigate that. I need to find out what happened. I know that a number of our employees, some of them have already retired, who took advantage of that. It really helped them with regard to their advancement and certainly for adding more value to the institution in their respective work areas. And so that's something that I know that will be on the table as part of those things that we need to investigate and figure out what happened and how can we make it work again. Yeah.
Questions from students or alumni? Sir, you want to ask your question? Okay, student.
Are you Kyle? Okay, your hair got longer. I didn't recognize. Congratulations, Kyle.
My question is, you and Dr. Okada are exceptional leaders within the educational realm here on Guam. How would you describe your relationship with Dr. Okada, and how would your relationship change after the presidential search ends?
Okay. Good question. So Dr. Okada and I are both founders of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce. That was 9 years ago. And I've known her, not very intimately, but we've known of each other. You know, we went to the same school many years ago. And I've always been very praiseworthy of her amazing accomplishments at the Guam Community College. She's been amazing in that regard. There was always this mutual respect in that regard. I'm trying to recall so there's this mutual respect, this like, hi, kissy on the cheek, and and that's just the nature of how we interact with people here on our island. How will it change afterwards, after the subject? It should not change. I am the same today as I was yesterday, as I was many years ago. My heart, the good that I see in people hasn't changed. And certainly we're such a tiny island. It's critical that we all get along, and we all want what's best for our island, our students, families, and our society. She and I both share the need to advance the economy through taking care of our employees, taking care of employers, taking care of our children, our families, and so forth. How would the relationship change if we were both employed at the University of Guam? Is that the question? Or in either sense? Yeah, so I've been a provost at the University of Guam for almost 10 years. I was dean of the School of Business and Public Administration since 1999, 2000. I was in that capacity. The titles kept changing for about 14 years. I've been an administrator most of my career here at the University of Guam. As a former HR management consultant, I know the importance of ensuring that there's quality of work life. I was not selected as president in 2018. I stayed to ensure that the university continued, and that that I supported the president of the university. And I already demonstrated my capacity to be professional, to be collegial, to be supportive, and to still, celebrate Dr. Crisy's achievements. I've demonstrated that for 5 years. I don't want to be provost beyond 10 years. I've already professed that. I've done that. It wasn't my dream job. But I truly, truly care about our institution and what it represents and the people. And I believe the reason why I did not retire last year is because I truly believe in the trajectory that we're on, and that we have a lot of really amazing people. And I want to make sure that we continue that trajectory without anyone feeling that they don't want to be a part of this university. So my heart has been, people question, She hasn't brought in new buildings. She's not very good with her finances. That's because they don't know me. Those of you who have been part of my journey at this institution, those of you who knew me prior to joining the University of Guam, okay, know me. You know my capabilities. I've served under 5 presidents. We can figure this out. As a strategic planner, as a visionary, as one who has so much respect for people, this is not about me. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for us. And that's my differential advantage. And if the board decides that I'm not the right fit, so be it. But yes, I will be retiring because I cannot be provost beyond my tenures. Not because I don't care. I can still come back as a provost emerita, but I feel that there needs to be more. And the deanship of a business school is the platform for the presidency. And that was told to me when I was at Harvard. The deanship of the business school is the platform for the presidency. Why? Because that is a person who knows how to navigate internally as well as externally, knows how to bring resources, knows how to bring partnerships. By virtue of that, I helped with the $13.5 million loan to build the Leon Guerrero facility. By virtue of that, I was able to write grants to allow faculty to participate and students to participate. As a result of that, we had a very supportive advisory council who wanted to give us money all the time. I said, no, we have enough money. As a result of that, I established an internal account that grew to $4 million to serve as backup funds to meet the annual debt service. As a result of that, so employing what I've been trained in accounting, in HR, in management, and marketing, and higher ed. Okay? You've got the full package. But I do this not for me, but I do it for us. So, thank you. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. Do we have a question from an alum in the audience? Ma'am?
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
So, to have an introduction to my question, I'd like to introduce myself to the audience. My name is Kyle Aniluhan. I am a recent alumni, specifically from the COVID class of 2020. Dr. Anita, along with other instructors, were there to give us support during that troubling time. And because of Dr. Anita, I was able to achieve my dream, which was to graduate the university and to teach in a foreign country. So she is my inspiration every day to continue to be the teacher for students in Japan, to teach them about Guam, and to increase their curiosity about the world. So my question to you, Doctor, is how do you continue to grow and inspire yourself as a leader today?
Thank you for that. I surround myself with amazing people. I make sure that I surround myself with those who have the hard questions to allow me to grow and to expand, the opportunities. What could we do? I've been a problem solver all my life. Where I see opportunities, I know how to find the right people. EDA had money to give away. Kathleen, you got to be here. You got to show up. They've got money. Let's get 2 buildings built. Made that happen. Okay. I feel this altruistic side of me always has to feel like it's doing something good, not for me, but for other people. And even if I'm retired, I know I'll be doing something for our community at large, and not run for office, but do it as a volunteer. I know how important it is to stay positive and stay current in the trends, and to make sure that I have a pulse of our community, internal and external. And so being able to just show up, being able to for me, it's I pray every morning, I pray every night, keeps me grounded. I look for ways in which others can benefit, look for more funds, partner, show up when people don't want to show up. We have amazing partners throughout Asia. We had a fellow who knew nothing about University of Guam give us $600,000 because I showed up to establish that relationship. There are others waiting to give a lot of money because they know that I will show up. And so being in those conversations, having lunch, having a coffee date with a prospective supporter, okay, telling the narrative. And I feel so good every time I tell the narrative about our institution and what it represents, to see if I move the needle even further to deliver more value to the institution. So taking care of myself, get that periodic massage, call someone you haven't heard from in 3 months, have that conversation, keep that network line open so that there's always someone you can reach out to. Calling people who have knowledge and say, hey, Dave, we're dealing with this with finances. What would you recommend, right? Keeping in touch with people who are part of my toolbox of colleagues, friends, who can provide new information that's going to be beneficial. That's how I take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. And it's because of those efforts I stand before you here today from Japan. Thank you.
Ms. Kylie.
Thank you for that question. I'm now going to questions from the cards. This is the question from faculty. The current President's Council only has 3 academic administrators and no faculty. Will you bring a greater academic voice into your top inner councils? Will you consider including faculty? Your thoughts on how this might be done?
Well, different universities have different models for what a cabinet represents. I've seen a model where you have faculty leaders, student leaders, administrators in that particular council. The council we currently have in place was one that was designed by the president. Every president brings a different, composition of cabinet members, and if we're going to be true to what we mean about embracing and respecting shared governance, we need to make sure that we have those governance leaders. I know we've got our administrative council, but we meet like for a half hour and boom, we're out of there. But there has to be something that is more a body that meets more regularly. I know that I mentioned to the head of staff council that individual should have at least a monthly meeting with the president in the same manner that the president of the faculty union as well as the faculty senate have a monthly meeting with the president, and also a student leader a monthly meeting. But as far as what that model is going to look like, I need to take a look. I would need to take a look at what are some of the other best practices and what would make most sense. Bring others into that conversation. What do you think of this? We don't have it. We don't want a really large composition, and we shouldn't be meeting every week if not necessary. I think it's just, what is the purpose of the council? What's the best composition? How frequently should we meet? And so forth.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. The next question comes from staff. Do you foresee UOG ever becoming an autonomous organization? If so, how do you plan to achieve this?
Unless we can come up with $30 million to fill the gap, we can. It will be a major ambitious goal to be fully autonomous. And we know the autonomous agencies, what happens where costs rise, so do rates. If our costs rise, do we pull the tuition lever and say, okay, we're going to raise tuition because our costs have risen? How do we make the difference of that $30 million gap or $23 million gap that comes from local appropriations? So if you truly want to be autonomous, then we're going to operate, we need to operate like a private university. And we are not. We're a public university, open admission, land grant. And so we just need to be careful which direction we go, because the opportunity cost of going autonomous is we lose out on all of these other earmarks and funds that come from government. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. I have questions in my stack from administrators, alumni, and students. So I'm going to now open the floor for questions from the audience. Sir?
I'll apologize. I may be a broken record on this one, and I'll say this for those who may listen in on the thing. It's well documented how far behind, and I'm encouraged by what you've already said about the faculty plan phase and adjustments of the faculty salary. It's well documented that the faculty have been left behind. Since 1991, two major administrator changes. Staff in 214, both civil service and what we now call the professional technical, got theirs, and then the administrators a year or two ago, and now staff as well. The Regents recognizing this, mandated that in our 214 budget we get this 20% increase. Yet the faculty are worried because our situation with our funding sources. I'd just like you to speculate on, should we have the catastrophic event of the legislature only giving us $24 million again. And I can't stress how much I feel that would be catastrophic. But should that happen, can the faculty count on getting their 20% increase?
Thank you for that question. In the early 2000s, the University of Guam went through financial exigency, or some semblance of that. So did other agencies because of our economic situation on island. And it was a very temporary situation of 3 months. Staff experienced a reduced work week, right? I think you had Fridays off. Administrators were experienced a 15% reduction in their salaries because the academic year had already unfolded, faculty at 10%. But it was a shared decision in that regard. And I believe GCC had gone through the same experience, albeit I don't know how they divided that. 24 million gets us 1 million above 23. If we play the scenarios, we run some contingency spreadsheet analysis, because I've asked our budget officer to do that. Said, let's play the scenarios. What if we only get 23 million? What if we get 20, what do we have to give up? If the 20% phase adjustment represents, I believe, $3 million, right? So at the current $23 million appropriation, okay, what have we had to give up? Okay, and so is 23 million sustainable? We already know it's not. They only give us 1 million above that 23, and yet the phase then represents 20%. What are we giving up? Where are we going to find it? There are ways to do that, right? I'm not going to spell it all out. But the board has already committed to ensuring that in the FY 2024 budget, which kicks in on October 1st, 2023, that the faculty will get their phase adjustment. But that's assuming the legislature approves a $42 million request. So the difference between 42 million and 23 million is about $19 million. But if we're truly committed towards preserving the faculty, because we want to stop the exodus of faculty, they haven't had a pay adjustment in a long time. The 22%, there are funds for that for classified staff. We just need to figure out how to get the rest. And if we want to make everybody whole, then some hard decisions are going to have to be made. Okay? And just like any organization, whether it be private or public, what's going to happen? Costs are going to have to decrease. Revenues are going to have to go up, right? There needs to be that balanced portfolio of both. And also examine what we have that's already, within our capital accounts and so forth. But we've already tapped those out for our new facilities. So what do we do within the next 2 years that we can afford to do without breaking the enterprise. And there's a way to do that, but it's going to require everyone to be at the table to have that conversation. Okay. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a point, we have roughly 5 minutes left for this session. Are there any other questions from any stakeholder groups? So we had a faculty question already. Are there any questions from any other stakeholder groups, alumni, administrators, students? If none, I will revert to a faculty question. Okay? All right, back to faculty.
Thank you. I think this follows in the last one. I actually wrote it on a card, but I was given a green card, which means staff. I don't know what happened. So my question is this. We hear a lot about, and we've heard this from all the candidates, about the need to be more entrepreneurial, which basically what people mean is the university and particularly the faculty need to figure out ways to generate revenue. That's usually what it means, right? Can you think of a realistic way for faculty in the humanities and social sciences to become a profit-making enterprise?
Profit. We don't engage in profit making. Our focus ought to be on sustainability and growth, right? And so everything is driven by the faculty, we know that. Where there's an opportunity to expand on your existing offerings, that has to be agreed upon by the faculty. Where there's an opportunity to take what you already have to turn them into workshops or, micro credentials or something, or there's a way to offer or supplement an already existing consortium of institutions of higher education because you want to bring in more students. Those models exist. In fact, private colleges and universities, to keep from shutting down, have looked into and have implemented a consortium model of other types of private colleges who share their courses under consortium so that they can fill up seats. Okay, so it really is all about, retention and completion. Retention, we need to make sure that we continue to have classes that fill up. Well, you've got classes of only 3 students or 2 students or 4 students, not sustainable. And you see that you're only graduating 1 or 2 students over time. It's not sustainable. President Underwood took us through a good to great exercise of reviewing all the programs across 4 different dimensions. Does it fit? Does it fit our mission? Does it represent high quality? Is it sustainable? And is there demand for it? In fact, I think we adopted something very similar with the Faculty Senate. Anytime new courses are being introduced, anytime a new program is being introduced, take it through what I call the G2G 4-way test. Is it going to, survive that G2G 4-way test of inquiry, right? And so the administrators are tasked to work with their faculty, take a look at your current portfolio of offerings, and where you have, attrition of faculty because they're retiring, and yet that program was shut down maybe 10 years ago or 6 years ago, reprioritizing that line in areas where there's growth. I mean, you have your programs or courses where they're like I call it cash cow, right? High demand, lots of tuition and so forth. And then you have those that are, sucking up too much resources. We call them cash dogs because the enrollment's not there, right? They're just sucking it out. They're like, man, those English, Dr. Garcia, it's not just those English faculty, there's so many of them, but there's only 3 of us and we need one of those lines, okay? But taking it through that abbreviated program review examination and figuring out, is this still relevant? Is it still valid? Is this something that we still want to support as an academic school or as an academic college? Or are there opportunities that we would love to jump on as a faculty, right, to take advantage of? So it's going through that exercise, and I know that you need to have those opportunities to have those conversations. Maybe we can leverage the folks from Dr. Barber's college to engage in those retreat types of conversations, and because I know that Marine Lab has gone through a strategic planning retreat, the Office of Research and Sponsor Programs led a retreat with all the research faculty just to get current, just to find out what is the current context and what can we do to sustain ourselves, to be in a growth trajectory, to take advantage of all these opportunities that have been falling on our lap, right? So that's, yeah. It deserves further conversation, but that's, that's the gist of how we ought to approach this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Enriquez. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes your Q&A session with Dr. Enriquez. How about a round of applause, please?
Now I'm going to sing and dance for Dr. McVeigh up there.